Yeah.
Oh, we're live, huh?
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. Well, welcome to the Beehive Biker Podcast.
Heck yeah. Thanks for having me.
Hey, anytime. This is Gary with the Hive Krew, and we're glad to have him on. It's kind of our first celebrity on the podcast.
I wouldn't go that far, but thanks.
Well, I feel like here in Utah you are. I mean, your guys' group.
Yeah, I mean, with the Hive Krew, you know, we're Utah's official Harley stunt team. You know, it's been about 4 years that we've started it. You know, it started about 4 years ago, and there wasn't really anything like a stunt team or a stunt. The stunt scene wasn't even really that big 4 years ago. The last 4 years, it's blown up huge. You know, so as it's blowing up, we see like California, Arizona, East Coast kind of blowing up and doing their thing with the stunt scene, and there wasn't really anything in Utah. So me and a few of the boys here in Utah, we were hungry, inspired, and had to start something, you know. So that's kind of where the Hive Krew came from, and obviously we're the Beehive State, so Hive Krew just seemed fitting,
totally.
You know. So yeah, it's just a group of boys that have been around for a minute, killing it on the Harleys, and decided to start a little team, and now it's doing its thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can tell by our name that it's a Utah thing.
It's a Utah thing, 100%. Yep.
Definitely got the pride in the state, so.
Got to. I remember when this state was, everybody looked over Utah, you know, everybody kind of just was like, where's Utah? You guys have horns over there? Like, you know, so it's pretty cool.
You guys have a large population of Mormons.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, so what changed? So you say that all these other states kind of had their thing going on, but Utah didn't. Was it just your guys' decision to make that step, or what happened?
Yeah, so I think we just saw that there wasn't really anything here, you know, and it was really small at first. I came back from California and I got to go to some events out there and watch like Jason pulling stunts ride. Got to watch like Stunt and Carnell, and like got to just see some really, really savage riders kill it in person. And after seeing that, I had a Sportster at the time. I had my first bike. I had just gotten back from a long trip to Mexico. Basically, my first bike was a Sportster. I got that Sportster. 3 days later, I went down to El Diablo Run in Mexico, and I came back. So it was like a 1,800-mile round trip in 6 days, and no face screen, no face shields, just a three-quarter helmet, just kind of raw, you know. And I came back, and then I went to a Harley Davidson stunt event, like I said, with Jason pulling stunts and Stunt Carnell and some bigger names, and I was just amazed. I was like, what? Like, this is unreal, the way they throw these bikes around, and, like, I didn't think it was possible to do on a Harley, you know? So seeing it in person inspired me huge. And there was already some boys here, like, doing some pop wheelies, nothing crazy, not like dropping it back, scraping the fender, anything like that. It was kind of just like people were doing pop wheelies, you know, kind of riding them out a little bit, but nobody was really like killing it on the Harley.
Nothing official.
Exactly. So I got back to Utah and got this group of boys. Corey Easy Does It. Shout out to Corey. Drake 801. Jamie Lindsay. There was a few boys that were stunting at the time, and we all kind of just got together and started riding, and it turned into what it is now.
Well, I think that, so I don't know if I told you this before, but I got a couple questions from some viewers.
Okay.
And we're going to play their clip.
Okay.
Also, if you could just adjust it a little closer.
A little closer?
When it goes out, it kind of clips out.
Okay, sounds good.
Perfect. That sounds much better.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. So I think our first question is from a viewer named Taylor, and we're going to play it right now.
What would be a good-sized bike if you want to learn how to stunt comfortably? Would that be something like more of a 300 or a 4 or something smaller to get going, then go up to a higher CC bike?
What do you think?
So always start small, you know, and work your way up. The muscle memory works the same on basically any bike. Once you have the foot brake, once you have the braking dialed and you are comfortable dropping the bike past balance point and using that brake, it's all the same after that. So my advice is get a Honda Monkey, get a Grom, get something small, you know, something that's going to be forgiving if you crash it. If you parts are going to be cheap, you know, you can usually get up and, and not be like, dang, I just wrecked my $10,000 bike, you know, like it's a $3,000 bike, parts are cheap for it. And they're really forgiving. So I would start on a Grom or a Monkey, something like that, even a 110, you know, something like that. and work your way up. I went straight from basically a Chinese motor scooter with a handbrake to a Sportster, and then to the Dyna, and then I kind of went backwards. So I got up to the Harley, and then I didn't have a Mini or anything, and then I got the Monkey, and that developed my riding skills so much more after I had my foundation.
So you when you started stunting, was that on the Monkey or was that on the Sportster, and then
so
kind of
really,
moved around on some bikes?
Yeah, so I started younger. Obviously, like I wasn't doing all the foot brake stuff for my whole life. Like I was always kind of popping wheelies and doing stuff, but nothing like I'm doing right now. Once you sorry, I just lost my place. Repeat the question one more time. Sorry.
Oh, just no, I lost it. No, so you started on which bike when you started stunting?
So I started on a 29-inch BMX bike, a big ripper, and that was like kind of the handbrake and stuff. And then I found it, like I said, one of those Chinese scooters. And I started doing wheelies on that, and I was like, man, this is pretty cool. Like if it's possible on this, it can be possible on anything, basically, And then just kind of worked my way up, and then after I got pretty good on the Dyna, I wanted to take my riding skills even further. So I got a Monkey, and then once I had the Monkey, I spent so much time on the Monkey, like hundreds and maybe even thousands of hours of seat time, and that all translates to the Harley after you have it dialed.
Okay, so I'm no expert in tricks, but from what I've heard, are there like kind of two main types of wheelies? You kind of have the rev and release the brake or your clutch to kind of pop it, or
yeah. So
how's that work?
I guess there would be two main types of wheelies. A wheelie's a wheelie. Obviously, if you got the front end up, you're doing a wheelie. But there's a difference between doing a power wheelie, and just like kind of holding the front end right below balance point and chasing out the wheelie, and getting to the point where you're comfortable to drop the bike back, meaning you get past the balance point. So if you don't touch the brake, your bike falls over backwards. So you're using the brake to basically just hold the wheelie in that same spot. So yeah, there's a difference between a power wheelie where you're chasing it out and like I guess a drop back where you're passing that balance point and using the brake to kind of maintain the balance point.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there's just two different levels of control on that.
Okay. So interesting. I think when you're doing your stunts, is the majority of it one or the other, or you kind of mix it in, or?
I spend as much time as I possibly can in drop back. It's just that's like the style, that's the cool factor. The more time you're spending in that, if he's not using the brake, he's gonna loop out, is like the place to be. So really, you're doing a wheelie. Yeah, you do a power wheelie to gain speed, and then you drop it back, and you're using the brake and also the bike's in drop back, so you're losing momentum. You're slowing down in the wheelie. So yeah, I'll speed up, whoop, 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 boom, and then hit drop back, let it drop, and you hear the decel like, and then you drop the front end a little bit and kind of just do it all over again.
Gotcha.
That's all it is power wheelie, drop back. Power wheelie, drop back. To
hold it continuously
for as long as you want. Yeah,
gotcha.
Exactly.
So have you ever seen those like wheelie teachers that they have at some motorcycle events?
Yeah.
Do those even work for
honestly,
what you're trying to learn?
I don't want to speak on it like for saying if it is good or bad. To me, I think the best way to learn is the nitty and gritty, like getting down and doing it the legit way, But I mean, if it's helping people get out there on a bike and it's helping them get that confidence that they need to go out there and do it on the pavement, then so be it. Let it happen. Let them learn how they want to. Everybody has a different path, different lane.
Right.
I think the top riders in the game though all learned like just doing it. Going to the lot and putting in the time and the energy to do it.
Sweet. Okay, so our next question comes from, I think this one. Yeah, I'll start with Jay's, dang it. I think he introduces himself. We'll play this one.
I'm James Ellis. I ride a 2003 Yamaha V-Star 1100. I'm from Magna, Utah. And my question is, what is the youngest rider that you have riding in your crew? And how old were you guys when you guys got into stunt riding?
So I guess this is a good way to like introduce your group.
For sure. Yeah. So in my crew, Hive Krew, we actually just brought on a new rider. His name's Chandler Olson. Super good dude. Very passionate. He's hungry. He's just good energy at the shows and stuff. He he brings the entertainment. He keeps everybody hyped up, and he's the younger cat in the group. I'm honestly not sure exactly how old Colton is. Chandler. Colton is his brother. Colton does all the filming, and Chandler's the one that's on the team. But yeah, shout out Chandler. He's killing it. He's hungry. I think Chandler's probably early 20s. But as far as everybody in Utah, the youngest right now is Slayah, Slayuh. Super, super talented kid. He's been on the Harley for about a year now, a little bit over a year, and he's insane. He's like doing the double hand drags, doing the elbow drags. Like, he's hungry and he's getting out there. He's practicing. He's putting in the work, and he's dedicated.
Right.
So right now in Utah, Slayah, he's 19 years old. He's holding it down for sure.
Dang. So how old were you when you started?
Started stunting Harleys. I think I'm on my fourth, maybe fifth year now. So I think I was 26 when I started stunting Harleys. Yep. So I'm 30 now, getting up there.
Oh, whatever. Still a young buck.
Age is just a number, because Jason pulling stunts, the dude that I mentioned earlier, he's 53 years old, and he is hands down the best in the game. He's if you guys don't know who Jason Pullen Stunts is, go check him out. Follow him on Instagram. He's got his family doing it. He's got a little daughter that is a shredder. She's killing it. His wife started stunting when she was, I think, like 35 or 36, and she puts all the boys to shame. She's an absolute killer. But Jason, he's a legend, and I'm inspired by Jason. He's, like I said, 53 years old, and he's invented most of the tricks that these guys think that they're inventing now. He was doing them over 10 years ago, So age is just a number. If you're hungry and you want to do something, you can get to the point where you can do something until your body doesn't allow you to do it anymore.
Right.
So.
That's really funny you say it like that. It's kind of like when a kid makes a joke, and it's like, "Oh, this is brand new material, Dad." It's like,
yeah.
Oh no, we've been saying that.
This has been around for a minute.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Right on. So let's see here. I have a few questions more that I had written down. Oh shoot. We'll come back to it. We usually do a news thing, like something new in motorcycling. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
So let's see. Okay, so one thing that we always have happening as motorcyclists is people say they're dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're always like, "Why are you riding a motorcycle? There's so much."
You're gonna get killed on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of balance? Like, obviously, you're taking it to an extreme. You're putting yourself in some more danger.
Definitely.
And how does your family react to that? You have close loved ones that you have to go home to at the end of the night.
100%.
So how do you balance that, the thrill, the love, the passion with the home life?
You gotta think you gotta go home at night, you have to be calculated in everything, so if we're out there ripping wheelies in the streets or drifting or being just hooning around, that time is for that time, and we all try to keep the environment as controlled as possible. Usually we're not out there doing it by ourselves in the streets. If we are doing it in the streets, we're with a group of people, and everybody's kind of looking out for each other, making sure there's not cars around, making sure, everybody's kind of aware of what's going on. But yeah, with that being said, we do enough crazy stuff on the bikes and in the streets that when it's time to cruise and just like go somewhere, we're following the traffic laws. We're not like splitting lanes and ripping 90 miles an hour everywhere. We're being really respectful. We're leaving distance in front of the cars that, you just make those decisions because like the more time you spend out there, the more likely something is to happen, especially doing it on like a higher level. Here in Utah, we have thousands of people who ski and snowboard, but who gets caught in the avalanches? The guys that have been doing it for the longest. You know?
That's a good point.
I think just being very aware and always playing defense when you're riding those bikes, always being like, that guy's out to get me. This guy's going to pull out in front of me. Like, because it is serious. It's not a game. Like once something happens, it's irreversible, so there's no take backs. There's no rewinds. There's no like, once it's done, and the consequences have to be served. So my advice is think about your family, think about your friends, think about your future, in the moment, you know, while you're riding and stuff. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we do have to make it home for sure.
So is that something you guys have had to deal with any members of your team? Any accidents? Any injuries?
Yeah, so we've been really lucky that we haven't had to deal with any of that stuff. I did work with a kid 2 years ago, year and a half ago or so. I was working over at Young Power Sports in Pleasant View.
Okay.
And he was an 18-year-old kid. He was hungry, you know. He was a ripper, liked to ride. All he had though, he had a Grom and he had another bullet bike. But he's hanging around like the guys all the time that are ripping, and he's like one of those guys that was wanting to climb the ladder and kind of move up in his riding progression and his skill. Unfortunately, his life was cut short. You know, he was on 1900 and going home one night, and he was only 18 years old, you know, so he didn't have the skill set behind him or the all the experience and all these things in his head that maybe he should have had, you know. And I don't know the whole breakdown of all the details on what happened, but I know that accidents can usually always be avoided, you know,
right.
If everybody's doing their part and doing what they're supposed to do, whether it be on the rider's side or the car side. But unfortunately, that day it was an accident that couldn't be taken back.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that my dad works in the ER and sees that stuff all the time. So
yeah,
that's something he'll see a wreck, immediately calling me up, you know.
Yeah. Are you good?
Yeah.
And that's something that we do too. Like you guys, whoever watches this podcast probably knows, but anytime there's a wreck, you know, it's on Facebook. Like, hey guys, check on your people. Hey, it's on Instagram. Hey, check on your people. And without a doubt, every single time, if I even have a question that it's somebody in my group or anything, you know, I'd throw it in the group. Hey, everybody check in. Everybody okay? Yeah, everybody's good.
All accounted for.
All accounted for. Yeah. So it's serious, man. It's the real deal. This is a passion. Everybody loves it. And, but it's real. Things can happen and your life can be completely changed and everybody around you too.
So you were saying that he didn't have as much experience. So one thing you guys do you guys do kind of group training events to kind of synchronize, improve your skills?
I think we just spend enough time riding with each other that we kind of understand each other's style and how each other rides. Each person in my group, I can tell you exactly how they ride. And when I'm around them, I know what to look out for and I know what not to look out for or how comfortable I can be around certain people. If I'm around somebody that I haven't really ridden with that much, I take a step back and kind of just watch.
Gotcha.
It's in a group, it's easier to find the person you don't want to be by than the person you want to be by. You know,
right.
I can look at somebody while they're riding, just the way they pull out of a parking lot or whatever, and say, that's probably somebody I want to stay away from on the ride or not, you know? So I think just being just paying attention in that way just could save you or the other person, you know?
Yeah. Some good spatial awareness.
Yeah. And educating people. If somebody is being crazy out there, being dangerous or putting other people's lives at risk or even their own, and call them out.
Right.
Don't be afraid to be like, hey man, like, I don't want to offend you or anything, but like, I saw this and like, this is something that we can do different, you know? And just kind of lead them in the right direction. You don't have to be like, you suck, like, but you can steer them in the right direction with still being respectful, you know?
Right. Well, that reminds me. So I'm pretty sure you were there. The Tucker Speed group ride up Trapper's Loop last year.
Yeah.
And I don't even think he was with our group because it's not that. I just feel like most people that showed up to that were on Harleys. But he was on like a sport bike doing wheelies in the group.
I remember that.
He almost like ran into me and I was like, bro.
Yeah. And yeah, on that, like, we spend so much time on our bikes and we spend so much time gaining this experience and like becoming better riders that the last thing you want is somebody else to injure you,
right?
Somebody else to hit you and take you down. I don't know about you guys, but I want to injure myself. Like if I'm going to go down, I want it to be my fault. I don't want it to be anybody else's fault, you know? So at least I have accountability and I can be like, oh man, that was dumb, but I can't blame it on anybody else but myself.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So.
I think this is a really good time for a question from one of our viewers, Josh. So let's play his.
Cool.
My name's Josh. I'm from Eagle Mountain, Utah. I ride a 2000 Harley Road King. My question is, when you're performing a stunt and you fall, what is the best way to fall to minimize the impact?
Okay. It's tough because I come from a snowboarding background and a skiing background and BMX and skateboarding. So naturally, throughout my whole life, I've kind of just learned how to fall. If I have to, I couldn't explain to you like, oh yeah, it all happens so fast. That you
Right.
kind of just go into natural reaction mode. What I've learned though is your body can take more of an impact than your limbs can. So instead of like putting out your wrist or putting out your legs or whatever, try to keep everything tight, and like not your body tight. Like don't tense up. You want to stay loose, but you want your body to take the impact.
Yeah, you're
So-
gonna break arms or legs easier than you're gonna be.
100%. Yeah, your
Breaking
body
internals.
can take quite a beating, but your arms and your legs and your limbs can't, So, yeah, my advice on that would just to be, don't flail, stay relaxed as much as you can and try to let your body take the brunt of the impact.
So are there any like motorcycle competition, like stunt competitions that you guys can compete in?
Yeah, so Bell Brawl's a huge one. That's been going on for a long time, for pretty much the duration of while Harley stunting has been popular. The Bell Brawls kind of help popularize it and bring riders, all the top riders, to one spot and put them in a lot together and do a competition based off points, style, toughness of trick, and then just the amount of tricks and stuff you can do. I'm not exactly sure all three classifications, but there's like three different things that they judge on. So Bell Brawl's one. They got some cool big ones coming right now, like Drift Cross. Harley Drift Cross is going to be huge. It's not quite as big right now. They've only done some events, but the momentum and the momentum it has behind it is just insane. And I don't know if anybody's seen like Harley drifting and stuff, but it's really sick to watch a Harley just like drifting, So I think that's Harley's lane that's coming up, and I think that's going to be Harley stunt. The Harley stunt scene's biggest lane probably is like Harley drifting.
Gotcha. So is Harley stunt driving as a whole a lot more newer than sport stunting? And is there really kind of a big difference between the two other than the actual bike or?
Definitely. So the sport bike guys, those are the OGs in the stunt game. These guys have been stunting for a hot minute, So I think it got popularized probably in the 90s, early 2000s, and then it just got carried on to what it is now. As the Harley stunt scene grows, obviously the sport bike scene is still growing because more people are getting bikes all the time. But I think the Harley stunt scene is definitely growing faster than the sport bike scene right now. Just obviously because it's newer. You got sport bike guys that have been in the game for a long time, the OGs that are moving over onto Harleys, helping popularize the Harleys. But yeah, two completely different machines. A sport bike, you can blap the throttle and bring it right up. Whereas a Harley, it takes some technique, of like me, I tap the back brake, the front end squats, and then I get my revs up and then dump the clutch while hitting my ass in the seat all at the same time, So there's a lot of technique and timing that goes into like just getting that thing in the air, I think that's the hardest part though, is just learning how to pop the Harley up. And once you know how to pop it up and you get it to the balance point, it's if you have the wheelie and the brake control, it's the same thing as any other bike. So if anything, it might be easier because it's heavier and it's more planted.
Gotcha. So is there any modifications you usually make to bikes to help with stunts or?
Yeah. So you could wheelie a stock Harley Davidson. You could stunt a stock Harley Davidson. It would take a beating though. So there's a few things that you can do to help your bike out and make wheelies easier or just set your bike up for success. So obviously first, like what I'd recommend is suspension. Stock Harley suspension is horrible. So yeah, suspension, like 13
plug to
inch.
Tucker speed if you're an Ogden.
Yeah,
Go get your
exactly.
suspension done.
Yeah, exactly. So suspension's number one. If I was going to build a bike from the ground up, suspension's first, you know. After that, I'd probably throw some like bars and risers on it, get the right stance that I want to have. after that, I'd probably like throw a different seat on it just so I'm more planted when I'm doing a wheelie. It's like holding me in more, you know. And then I'd probably do like exhaust, but you want to get like crash protection. You want to do suspension in the front and back. You want to have a case saver. A case saver basically goes on your frame underneath the timing cover side, underneath the motor.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come down, if your motor mounts go out or whatever, your motor doesn't hit your frame and crack the cases.
Gotcha.
And that happens quite often. You see that happening a lot. So there's definitely a certain amount of parts and some parts that help your bike have some longevity.
Yeah, I always wondered that because you see all these videos of people wheeling Harleys, sport bikes, but mainly the Harleys because the rear end goes a lot farther back.
Yeah.
They're scraping the back end. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, for sure. And
If I did that to my bike, I would just cry.
Yeah. And a lot of these little men out there watching these shows are like, these things aren't meant to be stunted, you know?
Oh,
and you're like
it's their
come on,
bike.
man. Yeah. I was like, yeah, but 95% of people love to come out and watch and enjoy the times.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
you only get some people that are like, you know, but most people are pretty impressed that you're doing that on a Harley.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I like watching it because it's kind of living vicariously. Like,
Yeah.
I wish I was that cool. Like, I just can't
Hey,
afford to replace the parts.
For sure, 100%. And honestly, I can't either. The only reason why I get to do the things I do is because I've just shook a lot of hands. You know,
Right.
I've put a lot of time into it. I can't afford to. I have a full build right now with Harley Davidson, and Harley's sponsoring Hive Krew this year. So they're
Dang.
doing like all our labor and hooking it up on parts and stuff. So my bike build right now, I think, is like $11,000 ticket, but they're taking care of me. So
Dang.
huge shout out to Utah Harley, Intermountain Harley.
So is that how many other? Do you have any other sponsors, or is it mainly just Utah Harley?
Yeah, so Utah Harley, I would definitely say is my main sponsor right now,
Mhm.
just because they are going above and beyond. They help the whole team. You know, without Utah Harley, this build that I'm doing right now wouldn't be possible. So definitely my main sponsor, Bassani Exhaust. They're huge. They are a huge supporter of me. They send me new exhaust every year, get me out to their events in LA to do like stunt shows and stuff. I just got picked up by Thundermax EFI or ESM. So it's a computer. It's basically replaces your stock ECM with a updated, newer, sicker one. So that's another huge performance mod that I couldn't really afford if they didn't help me out with it, you know. Elite Mototech, like levers, you know, like those things, just levers for a bike. If you want a clutch lever and a brake lever is like $350, $400.
Easily.
And stuff like that. It's just like, it's the little things that add up. It all adds up, you know. And then some merch brands that just send me some clothes and stuff to rock, you know. And yeah, huge shout out to all the sponsors that help me out. And if I don't mention anybody, I'm sorry, but I still do appreciate you.
So how's that come to be? Like, was that something that came pretty early on into your guys' career as a stunt team, or was that something that kind of
With the Harley sponsor?
yeah, just all the different sponsors? Was it just kind of something small at first, and then as you guys got more popular, it was like, hey, we really want to invest in you guys?
For sure, 100%. So social media does wonders. It's insane, like what social media will do. As much as it sucks to have to use it and like be a part of it, it really does. It can benefit somebody's life huge and open so many doors and opportunities that you would never have if you didn't have the social media, you know? So I think it really just started with like, hey, can I send you a shirt? Like, heck, yeah, you want to send me a shirt?
I'll rock that.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And like, you're stoked on that, you know, and you go get the shots and then you post them on Instagram or whatever. And then other companies see like, oh, dude, that guy, you did that because a guy gave you a shirt? Like, what if we do this for you? Like, can you do some content for us or whatever? And it's like, yeah, for sure, you know? And then you just start to connect with more companies and open more doors and opportunities. And then eventually you look down and you're like, dang, I have a bunch of sponsors,
Right.
you know? And it's not, and don't get me wrong, like there's work that goes into it. It's not just a company hitting my DM like, hey, like we want to give you this. It's like, you got to work for it too, you know? Like there's so many people, especially now the scene's getting so big that there's thousands of people that can ride a Harley, like
Right.
kill it on a Harley, you know? And there's people way better than me, you know, like even in this state, like I was telling you, Slay, he's coming up. He's insane. He kills it. I think it's just the time that goes into it. And and just showing the companies that you are valuable, not just in your tricks, because most people don't know what the tricks are that you're doing, but with just getting eyes to their website or whatever you have to do to get attention to their company, you know. And it's not always a double hand drag or whatever. Sometimes the content happens in different forms, you know. But yeah, I think be persistent. If you want a sponsorship, don't be afraid to ask. You know, if you're hungry and you know that this is something you're passionate about and you want to do it, don't be afraid to reach out to a company and like, hey, I love your guys' brand. I think it's sick. Like, is there anything that we can do to like work with each other, benefit each other? I like to create long-lasting, sustainable relationships. I'm looking to create a partnership, you know?
Right.
And like, if they like you, then cool. And they'll probably, you know, they'll probably entertain it. If not, it's all good. Be persistent and ask again next year. Exactly.
Yeah.
So anything's possible. If you're hungry, go out there and just do it.
So how often are you guys traveling?
Right now, I recently lost my license, so I'm kind of sticking home this year.
Yeah.
But usually we go to like, you know, 4 or 5 events out of the state every year. It gets more and more every year. The more the passion grows, the more you think like, whatever extra money I have, I'm going to spend it on traveling and doing this, you know. So this year we're locked in with Harley for, I think, 4 shows for this summer. And so those will probably be like the only shows I do this year, unless I like head out to LA or something and do a show on a private lot.
Gotcha.
You know? But
that's just at Salt Lake Harley Davidson, Utah Harley?
Yeah, so we've already done one at South Valley Harley. We did one at Golden Spike Harley. And then our next one's going to be at Utah Harley, so
Gotcha.
Salt Lake on state. Yep.
Gotcha. So where are some of the places you've been traveling in the past?
Pretty much like mostly all over the West Coast, Oregon, California, Arizona, Utah, holding it down. Really just kind of focus on over here. I haven't had the opportunity to like go to the East Coast or the Midwest yet, but I'd love to one day for sure. There's a lot of talent over there.
So what are you guys' kind of where do you want to go from here? So yeah, you do a lot of stuff in Utah. You hit a lot of West Coast areas. What do you want to do? What's the next peak?
Right now I'm just having fun, man. I'm just enjoying it. You know, I'm really thankful to be in the position I'm in, and like, nobody's really making a living doing this. No one's making $100,000 a year. Like, yeah, like let's party,
Raking
ride
it in.
Harleys, you know? So I'm just thankful for any opportunity that I get. I'd like to move forward more by doing more like short films and filming. I'm probably less of a competition writer, even though I do like competitions and stuff like that. I'm more of just like the aesthetic side of it. I love just like watching it and like seeing it and being in cool locations and cool places and like the cool shots. And that's kind of like what I like, you know? So, I want to be more of I want to start doing more films, more short films, collaborations with other talents and stuff like that. And then just continue it and see where the path takes me.
There you go. So have you collaborated with any other YouTubers or groups on Instagram, stuff like that?
Yeah, so there's always like small collabs going on. Not really YouTubers. I got hit up by Yellow Wolf's manager, his tour manager or whatever. It was actually a buddy that lined it all up. But got to go do a shoot with Yellow Wolf and Shooter Jennings, which was super sick. The song's called Jump Out the Window by Yellow Wolf, and it's on one of his newer albums. That was a really cool experience. They paid us to go out to Vegas, you know, gave us per diem every day. It was crazy. Like, you got to watch the video, but we were just out there in a
we'll have
dust
to add it
field.
to the show notes.
Yeah, you can add it to the show notes, but we're just out there, and it was like so windy. It was probably like 60-mile-an-hour winds, and we're like on this dry lake bed. So I probably still got dust in my eyes from that when I did that, you know? And then, yeah, just like collaborating with different talents, photographers, videographers, brands, you know, companies that are trying to grow their brand as well, and they see me as a talent that they could use to promote their product or whatever. Like to connect with people like that as well. And that's like where most of the paychecks come in, is collaborations and stuff.
Gotcha.
And doing promotions for other companies.
There you go. Well, let's talk about your guys' events. So you have the Swarm coming up.
Yep, that's this weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will be out before then, but
probably not.
yeah, but
we'll have to catch up with it afterwards.
100%. Yeah. If you're watching this, stay tuned. There will be a full video drop. I'm going to be doing a YouTube series of probably all 3 days. The first day, which is the hood ride. Second day is the main ride. And then third day is the lot sesh. I have 3 YouTube videos on it from last year. If you guys want to go check them out, YouTube's Get It Gary. And they're just the swarm videos. But yeah, basically we just get a bunch of dudes from all over the country that kill it on Harleys and take over Salt Lake.
Yeah, because you were saying it was like the biggest in the nation.
Yeah, 100%. It's the biggest Harley stunt ride in the world.
Dang. Or in the world.
In the world, yeah. Hands down, biggest Harley-specific stunt ride in the world. If anybody wants to argue with me on that, you can try, but you're going to fail.
So, how do you, with those group rides, how do you kind of manage the road? Make sure everyone's safe, but you can have fun.
For sure. So before each ride, before like every big event, we have like a little speech, you know, like, hey, if you don't know what you're doing, if you can't drop it back, stay in the back of the pack. Like if you don't have the wheelies locked, if you can't drop it back, please don't do wheelies in the pack. You know, we don't want somebody getting ran over from behind from a guy doing a power wheelie, anything like that. No 90-mile-an-hour wheelies on the shoulder. Everybody stay like, keep the pack speed the same, you know, be cautious, keep your head on a swivel. Everybody be cautious and aware of each other and what each other are doing. And really you have to just trust the people around you, you know, like I have to trust everybody out there on that road with my life.
Right.
And as do everybody has to trust me with their lives too, you know. Some people can get all giddy and excited and like want to get their tricks so bad. They get the eye of the tiger. Once the eye of the tiger happens, it's like, you got to just chill, dude. Yeah,
bring it down. Bring it down a notch.
Yeah. So I think just being, just knowing what your limit is and not taking yourself past your limit when there's people around, you know. If you want to push yourself, great. Go to the lot, you know, go to a spot where you're not going to injure yourself or anybody else. And then once you have all the tricks and stuff dialed, then bring it to the pack, you know. And the pack's really good about correcting each other. You know, if the pack sees somebody doing some crazy stuff that they shouldn't be doing or they need to tone it down a little bit at the next stop or even during the ride, people are going to be like, yo, chill out. You know, you're doing too much right now.
So how do you decide like which roads are best for doing different things? Like obviously are you going out on the interstate for anything like this? Are you staying like highways, inner city?
Yeah. So we try to stay off like any main highways or like high speed roads. Obviously we're doing stuff that's illegal. You know, we're not technically supposed to be doing what we're doing, even though there's no law against a wheelie in Utah.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Technically, there's no law against a wheelie.
Other states is a different thing.
Other states is a little different thing. Yeah, but in Utah, I've already dealt with all this. There's technically no law against a wheelie.
Really?
Now, if you're going over the line and then you go over this line, or you're going too fast, or you're going too slow, or like whatever, you know, those are infractions that can add up into a reckless driving ticket.
Gotcha.
But there technically is no law against a wheelie.
So how often does law step in? Do they catch you or see you every time and start tailing you? Or
it happens every once in a while. Cool thing about a big pack is like they can't get everybody.
Right.
You know? So most of the time, like here in Utah, we've had it really good. We've had the law, at least Salt Lake, be really respectful and really cool about us and like what we do. We do it every Tuesday, usually like every Friday, you know, and they know that we've been doing it for 3 or 4 years. So they kind of just let us do our thing. But yeah, there's definitely been some times where a cop wasn't too happy and he tried to single people out, or things can just happen. You know, you got cool cops and you got ones that aren't so cool. And if you get one that's mad and he's upset, and he's going to do his thing. He's going to do whatever he thinks he needs to do, you know?
So is there some sort of dialogue between the law and you guys, or is it just kind of an unspoken
I think it's
trust?
just a respect thing.
Yeah.
Like if they pull up on you and the pack's doing wheelies, the rule is set your wheelies down. Like just slow it down, chill out, go the speed limit, you know, like wave at them like, sorry, you know, like we're chilling, you know? And then eventually they'll just follow you for 2 or 3 blocks and they'll pull off and you start doing your thing again.
Gotcha.
But yeah, just when they pull up and they got the lights on, don't be flipping them off. Don't be taunting them. Don't be like, like just give them some respect, you know, and put it down. And I think that's the reason why we've been able to do it for as long as we have, is because we have that sense of respect.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think that you're gonna attract some angry
attention,
cops
for sure. Yeah,
or people that are calling that don't know any better.
100%.
So if maybe you are staying in your lanes, but then you're wheeling, no rule,
holding up traffic or whatever.
Yeah,
and you get people that get fired up. Like here in Utah, I don't know what it is, but people drive like shit. You know, people don't drive like they're supposed to here for whatever reason. But sometimes you get road rage and you get people trying to run you off the road, you know, and you're like, dude, what in the world? Like, we're doing some wheelies, chill out. Like, and we're not going that much slower than the speed limit. If anything, we're going like 5 below, you know? And I get it. Like, people don't want to sit behind bikes doing wheelies and stuff. But at the same time, you're in a car. Like, chill out, you know?
Man, I can't even imagine. So has anyone like tried to pull anything on you guys, or just kind of push you guys over to the side to get through?
Yeah, we've definitely had some stuff happen. Luckily, everybody's been able to keep their cool. We haven't had any things like where you see in the big cities like LA or something, where people surround the car and beat their windows out and like pull the guy out and beat him to a pulp. We haven't had anything like that happen. And if I saw anything like that happen, I would not surround myself with it. Like I said, I'm all about respect. And if somebody wants through and they're raging, just let them go. Like, don't try to chase them down. Like, just let them go.
Yeah.
Because
it's not
somebody's life can change really, really fast in those moments. You know, things, like I said earlier, it's like things are irreversible. Once it happens, you can't take it back. You can't be like, oh, shoot, reset, like rewind. What's done is done.
Not a video game.
Yeah, it's not a video game. It feels like it sometimes, but it's 100% real. So.
Yeah. What was I had a question. Is there like, do you have to be really concentrated when you're doing anything like that? Or is it kind of hit the zone? Like you're in a zen?
You're definitely in a zen, flow state of mind. That's why we're addicted to it. Like, I come from the ski and snowboard background, and that's why I do that, you know, because when I'm up there on top of the mountain and I'm shredding and I'm getting the pow shots, just ripping, getting my carbs in, you're not thinking about anything else except for that moment right there, you know. And I think that's the best therapy for the mind. I'm huge on mental health and like having a healthy mind and like healthy body. And I think number one is just spending time in the moment and not worried about what's in the past or what's in the future, just straight up enjoying the moment right now. And that's why I'm addicted to riding, because it just puts me in that zone and I'm not thinking about life. I'm not thinking about whatever problems I got going on. I'm just thinking about, man, this is a good time. I'm just living life to the fullest right now, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because, I mean, when anybody comes at me with, like, why do you ride a Harley, or why do you ride motorcycles?
100%.
Like, they're dangerous, this, that, and the other, who cares, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I can't help but look past it because of the benefits that come out of it.
100%.
I mean, I could be having the worst day possible, and then I take my wife out on a ride, and we just go.
And it's all good.
And grab some food, come back.
For sure. And it does something for the mind. It really does. Like, you glow different when you go out on a ride, you know? And people can't be so scared to live or so scared to die that they don't live. And you just die early, you know? Because if I'm not living like this and I'm just scared to live, in my opinion, you're already dead. Like, you know? So don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to do things that make you feel alive.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because we're here for a short amount of time, you know, and we can't be scared the whole time we're here.
Yeah, that's one thing that always breaks my heart when somebody comes up to me, is like, when I'm riding, man, I wish I could be doing what you're doing. I'm like, I'm just riding, dude.
Yeah, you can. You can do anything. Yeah.
Like, oh, my wife, or, oh, I can't afford it. Like, dude.
Well, you better get rid of her, son.
You can do anything. You just got to make the time. You got to make the effort.
You have to make it a priority, 100%.
Okay, so we're going to go towards advice for new stunt riders. And then let me just play this last one, because I do find it, I don't see it as often, but we'll talk about it.
Cool.
My name is Gary. I'm from Ogden, Utah. I ride a 2008 CVO electric glide. The question is there preference for the smaller bikes like the Dynas and the Sportsters, or is anybody crossing over into the road glides? And if so, is it a lot harder to ride something that big and heavy compared to something as light as a Sportster or a Dyna?
Yeah, it's a good question. You can definitely stunt a bagger.
Yeah.
And it's really popular. The bagger, yeah, it weighs a little bit more, but the weight, honestly, is you can use it to your advantage. Like with drifting and stuff, weight is your friend. You want as much weight as you can have, like over the front end, over the middle of the motorcycle, and it just helps your bike stay planted while you're drifting or doing wheelies or whatever. For this guy, I think his name's Gary.
Yeah,
So,
Gary.
Gary, you must be a cool guy. Go look up Sea Bear Stunts. He's a savage on the bagger. Reckless 203, Junkyard Kenny Stunts. We got actually Slaya, the 19-year-old I was telling you about. He just got a bagger.
Dang.
Yeah, there's a bunch of killers on baggers out there. You can definitely stunt a bagger. If anything, like sliding is probably easier than a dyna, but doing wheelies is probably a little harder to get it up.
Right,
But
just
once
the weight
you're-
distribution.
Yeah, exactly. But once you're up at balance point, it doesn't matter. The thing is going to be planted, and it's going to feel really good. So I would say baggers might be a little harder to get up, but they're probably the same to stunt. I've got to slide around a bagger a little bit and wheelie one, and I felt pretty good on it. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is such a different bike. It's the same bike. It just has a fairing on it and some bags.
Right. So basically, once, like we discussed earlier, once you kind of get the basics, it's just muscle memory and practice after that.
100%. And it translates to everything. I can hop on any bike with enough power to get the front end up and a back brake and wheelie it. You know, sometimes it might take 5-10 minutes to adjust and get your body used to the weight of the bike, but it's all the same.
Is there anything that, like, because like we talked, you had the kind of the Zen mode.
Yeah.
Is there anything that breaks that Zen mode? Something like, does fear ever creep in when you're doing something like that? Drops into the pit of your stomach, like, I just messed up kind of deal?
For sure. Yeah, like if your foot slips off the brake and you're in drop back, you're basically like looping out at that point. So if your foot slips off the brake, that's like an oh shit moment, like, ooh, you know, or say something's going on in front of you and somebody's doing a wheelie in front of you and they fall or something. That's like one of those moments, you know? But really, like, you feel so good when you're doing it that I'm to the point now that my adrenaline doesn't even pump when I'm riding wheelies. It only happens if something sketchy happens.
Oh,
you know?
dang.
And then my adrenaline will pump up, and then I'm like, I get more adrenaline sitting here talking to you in this podcast than I do like out
Just
on the streets
nerves of
doing
it,
wheelies.
because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I'm not used to it. I don't have the memory and the practice and stuff, you know. So I think just the more time you spend doing something in that compartment in your brain or whatever, the more it evolves and you just get used to kind of being there. And then really it just turns into like, you don't have to think about it. You just do it, and you like look over and you're smiling at people and waving and like just having as much fun as you possibly can, you know?
Yeah. I that's kind of how I feel about this. Like, it's all new to me, so I've got all these notes and all this stuff. And I'm
sure.
hoping that one day as I get used to talking to people, coming up with things on the fly, like, I like to be prepared,
For sure.
but I also like
The kind
things
of
to just
flow.
go on their own.
For sure. And dude, you're doing great. Like, is this your second or?
Yeah, this is my
so
second.
this is your second podcast. You're killing it. So yeah, it's the same thing. It's just like the more you do something, the more you develop and evolve in that area. And I tell everybody, like, you'll never get worse at something if you're actually trying to get better. Like, if you're putting in the consistent seat time, whatever it might be, like doing the podcast, riding motorcycles, building a barn, like, I don't know, you know, the more you do it,
It applies.
the better you're going to get at it. And you're not going to really lose it. You could ride a motorcycle or ride a bicycle and not ride one for 15 years, and you're going to hop back on it, and you're going to have it, you know, within a few minutes.
Right,
You know?
right.
So
Let's see here. I wanted to do a couple more questions before we hit up our current news event.
cool.
Let's see. Well, we'll get to it. Let's see. So, okay, we've covered a couple of these things when it comes to maintaining the stunt team. So, money, is that mainly all kind of your own personal funds, or is it some of the sponsorship stuff? Like, how do you kind of balance that? What it takes to maintain it money wise.
So at first, you're gonna be spending a lot of money. You know, like if you're not a sponsored rider and you're wanting to get into the stunt scene, It's not cheap. I'll tell you that right now. First off, you got to get the bike, which, you know, if you get a Sportster, you're looking at $3,000 to $5,000. If you get a Dyna, you're looking at $4,000 to $10,000. If you're getting a bagger, you're looking at $8,000 to $20,000.
Right.
You know? So first off, you have to have the bike, and then you have to get all the parts for the bike. Well, you don't have to. You can, like I said, you could stunt a stock Harley Davidson, but most people want to make it as easy as possible and build the bike to be able to withstand the abuse it's going to take. So by the time you put all the parts and stuff into it, you're into it another $5,000 or $10,000, you know? So by the time you're even like ready to stunt the bike, you've already spent like 15 to 20 grand, you know? So, and then it's like hard to be like, man, I just spent 15 or 20 grand. I'm going to go beat this thing up, you know? So initially it's expensive to get into it, but if it's something you're passionate about and you start doing the content and you start making a name for yourself and you start getting sponsorships and brand deals, all that money can help go back into your bike. You know, me, like, just as something as simple as an exhaust or having a company send me an ECM or the levers, like, that's huge. You know,
Right.
For most people, like, they're like, man, that's $3,000, and then the companies just send it to you, and you're like, man, that's such a big help. You know, because now I can spend this money on traveling or whatever it might be, but the more money I make in the realm, it just goes right back into it,
Right.
you know? So really, no matter how much money I have, I always have the same amount, basically none.
Because you know you're gonna do damage.
100%.
Whether even if you're doing things right or not making mistakes,
You're putting a
wears
lot of
on
wear
it.
and tear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone through 3 clutches, 3 clutch baskets. You know, I've gone through 3 transmissions. I've gone through 2 motors in the past year. It's not cheap. You know, it can be expensive. So I'm really lucky. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without my sponsors. So huge shout out to all the sponsors that help make it possible for me. And if you're trying to get into it and you don't have all the money in the world to do it, start small. You know, start with the Grom, start with the Monkey, move up to a Sportster, and then, you know, as the passion grows, your bag for the passion will also grow, because when you want to do something, you find a way to make it work, you know? So that's kind of where I was at with it. I couldn't always afford it, but I always did it.
right.
So
Yeah, I don't know. With me, sometimes it's hard to decide, is this the bike that I want to keep upgrading, or am I moving on to do I need to cut my losses almost
sure.
and move on to the next one? I guess one thing I was curious, does it really matter whether you're riding a Harley with a twin cam or a Milwaukee 8?
yeah,
or
so
an Evo? Like, is there one that kind of performs better for your guys'
for sure,
stuff?
the twin cams is going to be the most popular bike in the stunt scene, 100%. Not only because they're not a brand new bike, they're a little older and more affordable. There's a lot more to upgrade on them. But you and I can work on it in the shop. Where with a M8, I don't know what's going on with the M8. They got so much electronics and computer stuff, and that I really wouldn't want to dive into it. Also, the M8s they're all soft tails, you know, or they have the mono shock, you know, so the geometry of those bikes are way different than a twin cam where they have the 2 shocks.
So would that affect how you're able to wheelie with that central single shock?
Exactly. Yep. So it changes the balance point. I think it actually drops the balance point back a little bit, and then the balance point also gets smaller, so it's harder to manage on an M8.
So does it kind of like you're getting up, and then does that shock kind of compress
I
quicker at a certain point?
Yeah, I think
Like
it
it
compresses
folds on
as you're
itself?
coming up, so it makes it harder to come up. And then once you get past a certain point, I think the shock like locks itself out. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what happens. But I know that just from all the people I've talked to in the game, Cruzy Originals built a M8 stunt bike, and it was tough for them to wheelie, you know, and those guys wheelie every day. They're pros, you know, and they're like, man, this thing's really hard to wheelie. They actually have a video on it. So if you guys watch Cruzy Originals, you can go dig and find that video and kind of see the difference between an M8 and a twin cam. And the single cam, the Evos, they're sick motors too, super reliable, 80 cubic inch. My buddy Johnny Garcia has a 80 it's actually 88 single cam Evo, and it's he rips that thing, and they sound so good, and it performs. You know, it doesn't have quite as much power as my Dyna, but still rips.
So last episode we talked about first bikes, and we had one person that called in and was like, "Sportster's the one," and we had one that was like, "Do not ride a Sportster." What do you say?
Yeah, so
that was your first real bike, right?
Yeah. So Sportster was my first bike, and on social media, I kind of picked the Sportsters apart. The Sportster's just like the little brother in the Harley Davidson lane, you know? So, like, that's why the Sportsters get the most shit. Like, people like to joke around about the Sportsters and make jokes. It's a girl's bike, this and that. And it's a great bike. The Sportster Evos are, like, they're solid bikes. If you get something that's, like, a 2000 to 2003 or whatever the rigid mounts are, that's hands down the best Harley stunt bike to start on. And probably the best Harley stunt bike when it comes down to reliability. You can't beat the Sportster Evos. They're hands down probably one of the best bikes Harley ever built. But yeah, the power's not there, and they have an image of it was produced to be a woman's bike, so it's not a real Harley. You know,
I don't even get that. I mean, it's just everyone's got to start somewhere.
100%.
Plus, with how long they've been making the Sportster.
Yeah.
Or that version of the Sportster. I mean, the aftermarket's
so
enormous.
Much to upgrade. You could have a Sportster chopper. You could have a Sportster cafe racer. You could have a Sportster dirt bike. You could have a Sportster stunt bike. You could have a Sportster chopper. Like, they're the most, like, diverse bike, you know? Like, you can get a Sportster and set it up so many different ways by just changing a few parts, which is super sick.
Yeah, you can basically build one of those without using any factory parts. You can just order all the parts offline. You could buy an S&S motor. You can buy a frame.
And Sportsters rip. Like, if people are putting a 1250 or 1275 kit in them, like, it's putting my dyno to shame. They're
a lot lighter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is, tour bikes or the Electric Glide, Road Glide, they've got humongo engines, but they weigh so much.
Yeah. And on the dynos, like the twin cams, the swing arms mounted through the transmission, so you get a lot of, like, it's called the dyno wobble. Like, in corners and stuff, you get a lot of, like, it's loose. They're all loose. I've never been on a dyno where I'm, like, hitting a corner at 90 and I'm like, this is solid, you know? But I've been on a Sportster where I can hit a corner at 100, 110, and you're like, this thing could go faster. But it won't because it's a Sportster, you know. But
you're pushing it to its limits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they are solid bikes, and I make a lot of memes and, like, make fun of the Sportsters a lot. But it's just the little brother bike, and it's just like it's just, I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to poke at them a little bit. But hands down, they are probably one of the best bikes Harley ever made.
As long as it's all in good fun.
It's all in good fun. Yeah, there's no, like, real hate behind it. You know, it's all just, like, it's all brotherly love, pretty much.
Yeah, that's one thing that I really want out of this community is that as long as you're on two wheels, that's all that matters.
100%.
I mean, I started off on my first bike that I owned myself was a Yamaha FC09.
That was sick. Yeah.
So super fast, super fun.
Yep.
Not great for really tall people.
Yep. Really, yeah.
I'm like, well, it's not quite as squat as like an R1, you know, where it's like a full race bike. It's definitely a more, seated position, normal rider's triangle. But I just is like, man, my wrist kill, my neck kills because I'm like, ugh.
That's why I can't do the sport bikes, man. Like, they're sick and I have a blast ripping them. But, like, not only am I a stunter, I like to ride long distance too. And, like, anything longer than, like, an hour on a sport bike, I'm like, man, this sucks. Like, I don't want to ride this thing anymore, you know?
Yeah, I don't know how there's people that will cross country them suckers.
They'll cruise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to go do a casual 6-hour ride today. And you're like, what? Not for me. Yeah. I like the Harley. I like chilling, like I'm on a big couch.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, that was one thing that I thought was so funny is I talked about this in our other episode is I was kind of like the metric guy. When I first started riding, I was like, oh, Harleys, no way.
Yeah,
and then I got a Harley, and I also did not think I'd be, I'd make fun of the guys rolling down the road, and they're like,
Abe hanging. Yeah, for sure. The brothers.
Brother.
Yeah, brother.
But, I mean, mine's got 12-inch bars.
Yeah.
And
you're a bigger guy.
It feels so comfortable.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Teach their own.
I like the Harleys a lot, man. I tell everybody, once you get a Harley, you'll probably never not have one again. Even though people are like, well, the power to weight ratio and like all that. But it's like, bro, it's a Harley. It's like, it's not supposed to be faster than an R1. You know,
Right.
It's like, it's a Harley. It's meant it's meant to be a Harley.
No one's saying that about the Honda Monkey.
Yeah,
no,
no.
it's not that fast.
It's not that, yeah, it's meant to just be fun and cruise, man. But like to your point earlier, the I'm better than you type stuff. You ride a sport bike, like I don't like that. I make jokes, but it's all in good fun. There's like no seriousness behind it, you know. But in all seriousness, we're all out here doing the same thing for the same reason. We're all just trying to enjoy ourselves and ride and like have fun, you know. And that's really like I'm here for that. You're here for that. Growing up skiing and snowboarding, there was a big thing between skiers and snowboarders. But at the end of the day, like if you go ask the snowboarder, hey, bro, how come you're up here? And you go ask the skier, hey, bro, how come you're up here? They're both going to have the same answer.
Right.
You know? So, yeah, everybody just get along out there and be nice to each other.
Yeah. I think it all boils down to the same point. Oh, speaking of which, where did that passion for motorcycle riding really start for you? Because when we were talking about new riders last time, we talked about how pretty much not every, obviously, but a huge majority of motorcycle riders, it's like, well, I had a family member, I had a friend, like there's some direct connection. It's like that sparked the interest. What was that for you?
It's hard to pinpoint. My family didn't really have like motorcycles other than like dirt bikes or anything like that. Like my dad didn't have a Harley. Like he's not really that style. My dad was a professional bull rider back in the day. And like, I think it's just like the adrenaline, you know, I think it's the adrenaline factor of just like, I don't know, like being on something that you're not really supposed to be on or something, you know? But I think one of my biggest memories, I was in Yellowstone on a trip and there's always big motorcycle clubs that go through there, you know? And I think I was probably like 7 or 8 years old and big motorcycle group pulled out and we were just kids at the time and like, hey, do you guys want to come like sit on the bikes? And I'm like, heck yeah, let's check that out. And I'm like looking at these bikers like, oh my gosh, these are like bikers, you know, like these guys are scary and burly, you know, but like now that I'm older, yeah, 100%. But they were super hospitable and they were like, hey, like come sit on the bike and like rev it up. And that was like one of my first memories with a Harley was sitting on this random dude's bike and he's like, rev it up. And I like rev the piss out of it. And I like holding it just wide open. And like, yeah, exactly. And he's like, all right, that's enough, you know? And I don't know, that's kind of always stuck with me. And I just remembered how stoked I was when I got to do that. And ever since then, I was really fond of Harleys, you know? And yeah, I've ridden motorcycles and dirt bikes and four-wheelers my whole life and mostly just like trail riding, you know? But the one that really got me into Harley stunting is my buddy David Kelso. He's my best friend. When we talked about it all winter, we were working up to the same ski shop, and he's like, "Dude, you got to get a Harley so we can like ride." And he's like, "My lady's selling hers when we go back home to California. So like, if you want to come out and buy this, we're gonna get her a different bike, and you can buy hers." You know. So the whole winter, I saved up, and we were working in the ski shop. I saved up all my tips and stuff. And right when the season ended, we drove out to California. I picked up that Sportster, and it was just history from there. Like, he's the one, though, David Kelso. I saw him do a wheelie first. Like, he's the one that inspired me to get the Harley. But I remember the first time I was riding my new Sportster, his girlfriend's old Sportster. I bought it from her, and we went out on a cruise, and he was on his Dyna, and I was on the Sportster. And I was like, this is so sick. And he pulled up a wheelie going up this hill, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, David. And I was just like, I remember like my adrenaline was pumping for him, you know? And I was like, dude, you are wild. You got to tone it down, you know? Like, I don't want to have to clean you up off the ground. Oh, man. And once I saw that, I was like, okay, I have to learn, you know? I have to learn. I have to figure it out. So shout out to my best bud, David, for really like locking in the passion, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you get it, you catch the bug, it's over.
It's over. Yeah. There's no going back. And if you go back, I don't know where you're going. You
right.
know?
Well, and I think the same with what you said earlier, once you start riding a Harley.
Yeah.
There's something about it.
There's something about it.
Years ago, I would have never thought I'd ride a Harley. They're like, hey, you're going to ride a 2012 Electric Glide one day. I'm like, no.
Right?
What's an Electric Glide?
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. That's why I'm always telling people, like all my friend group, like I just know how much joy it brings me, I'm like, you got to get on
You
a
want
bike.
to share it. Yeah. And that's how I've always been. I've always been like a sharer or a social butterfly. Anything I create as a passion, I'm trying to get as many people to do as possible because it's always funner with more people, you know?
Mhm.
And once you start seeing the passion in other people, it just like instills the passion in you. And it's just, yeah, it's just funner when there's more people doing it, you know? So same thing with snowboarding and skiing. Like the more homies you got up there on the mountain, the funner, unless it's a POW day. No friends on POW days. But yeah, with the Harleys, I love the brother aspect of it, and just knowing that all these guys out there, we all could die out there, you know, like any one of us anything could happen at any time. And there's just something about that factor that like really ties everybody like brothers, you know, like, you can't say that about a whole lot of sports that like, hey, like buddy could leave for home and not be back tomorrow, you know, and every single day on the motorcycle, you know, I always say a small prayer and, you know, watch out for my boys, watch out for myself, you know, make sure, give me the proper path that I need to be on to make all the decisions I need to make it home safely tonight, you know?
Yeah. So is that kind of do you have any sort of pre-ride rituals at all? Like obviously you said the prayer, like something simple, keep protection.
And it's not
over
like, you know, I'm not like,
right, just
but
in your heart.
in my heart, you know, and just kind of like just being aware of what you're doing, where you're at, you know, the fact that it is dangerous and anything can happen. The universe has a funny way of teaching people lessons, you know, and you just want to make sure the universe or God's on your side, whatever that might be. So shoot them a little prayer, whatever that might be for whoever, and just I don't know, follow that path, follow the gut feeling. You know?
Right on. Okay, so we're coming up to an end here. Let's roll over to this this current news event. Let me just bring it up on the screen so you can see what's going on. Okay. So this article I brought up from motorcycle.com, and it's an article written by Dennis Chung. Have you heard about the Harley Davidson X500 and the X750?
This is the first I'm hearing about it.
Okay, so this article is a little older, October 11th, 2023. So Harley Davidson, I guess they engineered and contracted the production of this X500 and X750, I think.
Okay.
They are only produced in China.
Really?
Yeah. So this is what it looks like.
Looks kind of like a Buell.
Yeah. That's yeah. First thing that came to mind, kind of mixed with that, and why can't I think?
Like a Triumph or
what's that? Oh my gosh.
A Bolt? Yamaha?
Yeah, I'd say.
Something like that. Yeah, like Buell, Triumph, Yamaha Bolt.
Not your typical
Rebel.
Harley.
Yeah,
though.
not your typical Harley.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that this one's only sold in, I think it's some countries in Europe, India, China, and it might be in Australia. But this article was sharing that they had, let's see, where is it? So Harley Davidson has released a U.S. owner's manual for the X500 indicating a roadster manufactured in China's Xinjiang motorcycle. Yeah, something like that. Will be coming to America for the 2024 model year. So this is just kind of speculation.
Okay.
This motorcycle, as far as I'm understanding, the only time you're going to see it in the U.S. is at Harley Davidson schools.
Oh, God.
So like the motorcycle schools.
That's a good bike to learn on.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
I'm like, that would be a really good option for even learning stunt riding. It's got to be a lot cheaper. It looks like it's got more plastic on it. It's a lot lighter.
For sure. I think Harley sees the scene and what it's doing right now, and the scene's kind of moving from the older generation back to the younger one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they're trying to cater to more of the younger generation. Obviously, we're going to be around a little longer. You know, all the old heads are kind of going out, buying less bikes, and the new upcomers are, you know, probably 20 to 35 years old, and well, older than that too. But in my realm, 20 to 35 years
Right.
old is like the number. But bikes like this, if they could come out with something that is in production that's affordable, that you can go out and buy, because there's nobody like me going out and buying a $30,000 motorcycle and stunting it, you know. Not at least nobody I know. But something like that, it's probably a better price point. It's probably a little bit more forgiving. Looks like a little bit lighter. Looks like a good bike to learn on, good beginner bike, and it looks like it has potential to be a good stunt bike.
So you think it'd be good for Harley to do that, make that decision?
Yeah, I think that Harley needs to cater to the younger generation right now,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've been making some pretty big changes when it comes to new models. They've got the off-roading Pan America. They've got the new Sportster. What are your thoughts on that new Sportster?
I like the Pan America. I think the Sportster's sick. Like, yeah, it's a cool bike and it rips. I rode it out in Sturgis 3 years ago, and it was the thing. I was really impressed with it. The thing ripped for sure, and it has the same motor as the Pan America. Pan America's rips too. I rode that one as well, and I hopped on the highway, and I was going 130 miles an hour before I even knew it. You know, so
Yeah,
I was
that new
very
Revolution
impressed.
Max engine is something else.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, it's nothing like any Harley I've ever been on. You know, it's like it's taken Harley to a completely different level. And you're starting to see more people now stunting the Pan Americas.
Really?
Low life stunt.
huge.
They're big. Yeah, they're huge. They're built really well though. Like the
Right.
geometry and stuff. Like on my bike, if I'm rolling at 3 miles an hour, I'm like, you know, it's just getting heavy on one side or the other. The Pan Americas, I feel like you can almost stand still in place on those things, and it's like pretty
Just really well balanced left to right, not just
100%.
up and down.
100%. Yeah, it's a really, really well built bike. And like I said, they're getting more popular in the stunt scene right now. Shout out Low Life Stunts. He's out in Florida. He's ripping a Pan America. There's people ripping them all over any trail you can think of in America and all over the world. So they're very capable machines. I'd like to get one eventually. Just gotta work it into the budget, you know.
Totally. That's kind of how I feel. I'm like, do I keep my old bike because it holds a lot of memories, obviously,
sure.
being my first Harley Davidson, or do I trade it in and then get another bike? Do I keep it and then save up longer and get another bike?
For sure.
Because
Well, you know our grandparents, and we all have those grandparents. Like, I used to have one of those. Man, I regret selling that.
it, yeah.
Yep. So like my advice is keep your first bike. You know, just save up and get that next one, because they are sentimental, and you do learn so much on them, and you have so much time and experience and like just cool things that happen on them that the memories all just sit in one place. And when you're riding it, it's like a time machine. You can be taken back to a certain moment in time that you spent on that bike, you know, wherever it might have been, in different country or different part of the country or wherever, you know. But yeah, I'm huge on. I listen to my grandpa, and I've heard him say that so many times. Like, man, I should have kept that car or whatever, you know. And I try to learn from those mistakes, and whatever I have, I just try to keep it.
Yeah, I think, man.
And you never get out what you put into those bikes.
Oh,
Like,
never.
Yeah, you
Harley
bought this
Davidson's
bike.
got to be the best out of them all, though.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
I never, out of my my Honda and my Yamaha, I never got what I put into it.
No.
But the Harley,
They do a little bit better. Yeah,
but at the same time, it's mainly because it's just like you get a lot from the name.
exactly.
But
Yep.
I mean, $5,000 at least just in getting it to fit how I like to
Exactly,
sit.
yeah.
You know, the bars, the grips, the floorboards. And,
Yep.
you just got I think that's the thing that keeps me from getting a new bike
It's
sooner
just
is
knowing
like,
how much
oh
you
my
have
gosh,
to put into the new one.
I'm
to
gonna
get
have
it.
to restart just to get this how I
Exactly.
want it to feel comfort wise, let alone any sort of like engine or exhaust
yeah.
or
That's when it
cams.
gets expensive. Like
yeah,
my motor right now that Harley's building, it's a crank up build. So the crank's Dark Horse crank with Dark Horse connecting rods, and then 95 kit, ported and polished heads, like the whole 9 yards, you know. And like if I had to pay for that build, I would never ever get out of it what's going into it, you know.
yeah.
Luckily Harley's taking care of me, and I'll never sell this bike regardless. But like even if I ever did, now I could be like, well, I'm not losing huge, you know. But I'm like you, and that bike means the world to me. It's a sentimental bike. I've learned everything on it. I've been so many places on it. I've had so many experiences and met so many people and opened so many doors with that bike that it's just it's a staple now. You know, I don't think I could ever get rid of it. So
yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think I might be able to part with if it was to somebody I knew, because then I'm gonna see
then
it.
you can see it. Yeah, possibly rip it still. Yeah,
Yeah. Like, hey, can I borrow that real quick?
for sure. It's hard, man. I feel that I think I've posted mine for sale probably 4 different times, and then like I'll get an offer, and then I'll be like, oh no, I don't want to sell it, you know, and yeah, I just can't. I can't get myself to sell it.
Yeah,
I've tried.
Same. So before I bought, this is what I think is really ironic, is when my daughter was born, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can afford to keep this motorcycle, because at the time I had a Honda Fury.
For sure. Yeah.
And then my friend Gary that just called in, his wife was like, don't sell your bike. You're gonna hate life. Like, I know how much you like riding. You're gonna hate life.
For sure.
And then somehow I talked myself into buying a Harley. No, I found the right bike for the right price, and I sold the Honda, but I bought a Harley at the same time. Yeah.
And if you don't ride motorcycles and you haven't, you won't understand that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But once you have it and you've ridden motorcycles and you've just been in the saddle and you've had some good experiences, you will tell yourself, I will never go back to not having a motorcycle, because it really is therapy. Like, people, you hear it all the time, throttle therapy machine. Like, it really is. Like, it's a therapist without it being a therapist, you know?
Like, I probably spend about the same, and I'd rather have the motorcycle anyways.
100%. Yeah. And the motorcycle ain't going to tell you anything you don't want to hear. You know?
Don't go to therapy, buy a motorcycle.
Exactly. 100%.
Thanks for coming to the Beehive Biker Podcast.
That's right there.
Oh man. Well, we could go on for hours, but I just want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for reaching out.
Anytime.
That was like eye-opening for me. Like, you sent me a message right after I posted on Facebook, because I was just trying to get some pre-hype.
For sure.
People to just at least know it was coming, to keep an eye out for it. And then here I look at my phone and it's you, and it says Hive Krew, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Sick.
There's no way.
Well, it takes a village, man. That's what I tell everybody. Like, this is a community that everybody can do something to help everybody else, you know? Like, nobody can do it by themselves. Nobody can do it alone. I'm huge on, like, just being a social butterfly and, like, just sharing the passion and, like, with whoever. So if we can get people to watch this podcast, and, like, even if they don't ride already, then kind of poke at the idea of riding, and we get one person to get a bike, then this was a successful podcast.
Exactly. And that's the whole reason Zach, my co-host, and I are starting this, is we are so passionate about it. We know that there are so many others in the community in Utah. Like, I think some people would think about Utah and they know that we're famous for snow, but they would not think about the people that ride motorcycles. And
100%.
we have a lot of passionate riders here in Utah.
And we have some really good riding.
Oh yeah.
Like, these mountains right here, the Rocky Mountains, the Wasatch Front, there is amazing riding. And, like, we got Antelope Island. We can go check out some buffalo in like 15 minutes, you know, like, that's pretty wild. So, yeah, Utah's super underrated. It's getting more popular, you know, right now with the housing market and so many people just flooding the state. But, yeah, I'd like to see some more motorcycles out there on the road. And in Utah, like, really, it really is a big motorcycle scene. You know, like, you go out to California in the middle of the summer, you don't see as many motorcycles as you do in Utah.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. It's wild.
I would never have guessed that.
You would think, man, there's so many motorcycles in California, and there is, but I think population per capita, whatever, riders versus population, I think there's a higher percentage here in Utah.
That makes sense.
And we're hungry. We don't get a ride for 6 months, 6 months out of the year. So once it's ride season, it's like you're hungry.
Yeah.
So I think it just makes it that much, you're just that much more hungry to get out there and rip, you know?
For sure. So tell our listeners how they can find you. So you've got your own personal accounts and you got your team accounts. How can they find you?
Yeah. So my account on social media is _. And then I have a YouTube. That one's _. You can follow our team page. It's called Hive Krew, Hive_Krew with a K. And from there, you can kind of just go through the social medias and you'll find other riders here in Utah. Also want to shout out to Harley Hooligans. They're a bunch of kids that they're not kids anymore. It's crazy. When I started hanging out with these boys, it seemed like they were kids, but they've all grown up in the past 4 years, 3-4 years, quite a bit. But they just started their own little crew. So Harley Hooligans is the upcoming generation of Harley stunt riders here in Utah. All good boys.
Is Slay a part of them? Or
Yeah,
they,
yeah.
okay,
So
gotcha.
Slay is on Harley Hooligans along with Ryan James, Simply Stunts, Bug BMX, and Bozo Chan. So all those boys, they're all hungry, they're all stoked, and they're all coming up fast.
Cool. And you can see those guys at the Swarm.
Yep,
assuming.
those guys will all be at the Swarm. Yep. So stay tuned for the Swarm. It's gonna be wild. So you guys will definitely be seeing some content from it for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy.